Hope you left some room on your plate, because these are my favorite metal albums of March.
Here comes the airplane.
And kicking things off, we have Skeletal Remains with Fragments of the Ageless. This California death metal band formed in 2011 with this their 5th album following up 2020's The Entombment of Chaos. I've been openly critical of the new wave of old school death metal bands for just retreading already well-trodden sounds, but goddamn, I think Skeletal Remains just managed to make my favorite Cannibal Corpse album since A Skeletal Domain. Seriously, from the riffs to Chris Monroy's absolutely searing vocal delivery to the production, that's exactly what this is and executed to perfection. I was actually wondering if Eric Rutan produced this, but it turns out it's the even more legendary Dan Sueno. Expect to see this album pretty high up when we do our 2024 death metal ranking later this year. Then we have Apogean with Cyberstrictive. This is the latest project featuring Max Smith, who has done killer vocals for Krosis, Alterbeast, and Hammer of Dawn. I'm a big fan of what Mac brings to the table, and he fits in here perfectly, bringing deathly low growls and phlegmy high snarls, alongside a great mix of brutal technicality, melodic riffing, and irresistible grooves I'd compare to Entheos. Absolutely dizzying guitar work, but once more expertly woven into progressive songwriting that I find highly engaging and rarely predictable. On my first listen, I kept waiting to land on a filler track, and it just never happened. If anything, it only gets better. I've already heard plenty of albums in the genre this year, and this is also pretty near the top for me. Then we have Deadhead with Shadow Soul. Just in time for their 35th anniversary, this Dutch band is still bringing some serious heat with this new release. It is fast and ferocious thrash metal with more than a hint of death metal in its DNA. A little Slayer, a touch of Obituary, and some seriously killer drumming all make this a full headbanger of a listen and definitely make me interested to check out the rest of their discography. Then we have Messiah with Christus Hypercubus. The 7th album from this Swiss death metal band we've been covering the early works of on our 90s death metal ranking series, and their first full length with new vocalist Marcus Seebeck after Andy Kana sadly passed away in 2022. I haven't listened to their previous 2020 albums, so I can't really make comparisons, but I will say that if you're looking for death metal that mixes old school heaviness with big atmosphere, this is right up your alley. Not every song here floored me, but certain ones like Centipede Bite and Acid Fish definitely caught my attention. Some pretty cool spooky leads too on others like the title track. Then we have Midnight with Hellish Expectations. This is the album I've been wanting this Cleveland Blackened speed metal band to make since the very beginning. For all the hype, I've always found myself lukewarm on their recordings, especially the more they have ventured into longer tracks. In my opinion, their strength has always been that Venom-esque, straight-for-the-throat energy, and with the release of single Fuck Off and Live, my prayers for that were finally answered. 10 tracks, all under 3 minutes, and for a seriously lean runtime of 26 minutes. Not a second of it wasted on anything less than full speed ahead, motorcycle exhaust, and blasphemy. Brevity is the soul of wit, but apparently also horny devil-worshipping punk and speed metal. Blasphemer! Hey, if you're enjoying the video so far, as always, hit the like button. It really helps me out. And also comment below your favorite albums as we go along. But next up, we have Hideous Divinity with Unextinct. Hideous Divinity is a band I've been following since 2017's excellent Advenians, but this Italian tech death crew has been kicking since 2007. Much like I said of Vitriol back in January, their sound is incredibly dense and menacing, so much so that it can almost be off-putting on first listen. Sort of combine that with the grandiosity of fellow Italians Flesh God Apocalypse, and you might have an approximation of their sound. If I'm being critical, I do find the instrumentation to be at times chaotic to a fault, and the songwriting can be a bit meandering and overly long-winded, but damned if it isn't always impressive, and the bass frequently steals the spotlight for me.
Slap at that bass, man! I slap at that bass!
Then we have Devastatiön with Rise of the Dead. Two killer Blackened speed metal albums this month, though this Belgian band has even more emphasis on the black metal elements, I would say. In fact, it may be even more difficult to identify the thrash and speed influence, but then you'll get a riff like the one at the end of Unholy Ritual or Necronomicon, and it all becomes clear. Regardless, this is a ripper of a record full of jangly, arthritis-inducing tremolo picking, imposing kind of Dimmu Borgir-esque vocals, and rollicking D-beats. Hooks upon hooks upon hooks, and a seemingly endless dark wellspring of energy that I wish I could bottle and take daily. Then we have Suffer with Grand Canvas of the Aesthete. Suffer apparently formed all the way back in 1989, dropping a few demos and a compilation in the 90s. It wasn't until 2015 that they dropped a full length, following that up with an EP last year, and now their sophomore effort. Frankly, I never would have guessed that without reading it, as this sounds just as young and hungry as many of the newer bands on this list. It feels like the perfect fusion of the current 2020 sound with plenty of Carcass as well as notes of Morbid Angel's domination grooves. The rebellious snarls in particular give me the same vibes as the first time I listened to Heartwork or Swan Song. Then we have Wounds with Ruin. Chicago band with their first full length to follow up a well-received EP. Their sound is one of extreme groove-oriented technical death metal that has me drawing comparisons to Surreption, guitars chugging their way through some seriously infectious rhythms. I'd particularly recommend the tracks Doom Incarnate or Zoophagus to start with, but really this is a very consistent 37 minutes that should have you bobbing your head from start to finish. Then we have Prisoner with Putrid, Obsolete. This is the sophomore effort from the Virginia-based band, and they really caught my attention with their unholy fusion of extreme sounds. This record covers everything from grindcore and noise to industrial in the vein of Godflesh to death doom and sludge. The closest comparison feels like Full of Hell, with whom the band has played before. Another big draw for me is their triple vocalist onslaught, which makes for an especially gnarly listen. It's a bleak and miserable one, but it really sticks with you like an apocalyptic singularity of pure nihilism.
You were the all-singing, all-dancing crap of the world.
Then we have Northern Genocide with The Point of No Return. This Finnish melodic death metal band puts an interesting twist on their sound that instantly stood out to me. Rather than engaging in a similar melancholic approach of regional peers like Insomnium, Northern Genocide have a decidedly more upbeat sound driven heavily by the use of bouncy keyboards I'd compare to like 80s bands along the same vein as like Europe and Synthwave. The end result at times makes me think of Dark Tranquillity and especially Children of Bodom, with a touch of Amon Amarth, but even those reference points fail to fully cover their particular sound. I will say that the additional female clean vocals could use a little bit more polishing, but I like the variety and still recommend checking this out. Next up is Critical Defiance with The Search Won't Fall. The third album from this Chilean thrash group formed in 2010, but still acting like it's 1989. Another one bringing the pure old school energy in a somewhat similar vein as Dark Angel, without any modern flourishes. Even the production has a bit of a retro feel. Killer speed and energy that's ripe for headbanging. My one complaint is the same one I've mentioned many times before. In my opinion, most thrash metal has no business doing songs over 3 or so minutes, save for rare exceptions like Holy Wars and One. Here we have a few ranging from over 6 to nearly 10 minutes, leading to some repetition, but credit where it's due. it didn't annoy me as much as others have in the past. Shorter would be better, but overall this is a very fun runtime. Then we have Weston's Super Maim with See You Tomorrow, Baby. This Oregon project reports broad influences that include Meshuggah, Will Haven, Crowbar, Car Bomb, and Humanity's Last Breath, and also features guest spots from members of Surreption, Blindfolded and Led to the Woods, and Frontier, the last of which, along with Car Bomb, is what I would most compare this album to. If anything, the guitars feel like just another rhythm section to back the more interesting elements a la Darko on tracks like Johnny Mnemonic and Kryptonite Renegade, while others like the Bare Maximum feels more directly influenced by albums like Nothing and Obsin. Then of course we have to have Judas Priest with Invincible Shield. I had no feelings initially when this was announced, but then they dropped the opening track Panic Attack, and I got pretty hyped. I'd go so far to say that between the killer riffs, overall speed, and incredibly infectious chorus, I'd put that song up there in their best singles alongside the likes of Painkiller.
Inconceivable.
And I'm happy to tell you that the rest of the record largely lives up to the hype with other bangers like As God Is My Witness, Sons of Thunder, Invincible Shields, Trial by Fire, and The Serpent and the King. Even my least favorite song on this album is like a 7.5 out of 10, but most of them are at least an 8. Honestly, if someone had told me this were old unreleased songs from the 80s, I totally would have believed it, and with a 72-year-old Rob Halford still hitting every high note like he's in his 20s. Then we have Lou Kelly with Never Was. The return of one of my favorite underground projects around, and a busy one at that. Lou is like Mike Patton for a new generation, bringing a weirdness that knows no genre bounds. And once more, Never Was defies concise stylistic labeling while also unleashing arguably some of his heaviest songs to date. Will you be my host to this dying house? Within seconds, songs will navigate between death metal, jazz, mathcore, and more. Notably, this album is made up of songs he originally wrote for a project he tried to start with friends in 2016 and only now decided to go back to add vocals and turn it into a concept album for a band that never was. Then we have Grayscale Season with Feel Something New. Grayscale Season is an incredibly underrated Swedish metalcore band that has been dropping nothing but heaters since around 2016. They initially caught my attention in 2019 with the punchy Everything Hurts, only to expand their more melodic directions with 2022's Do You Like Violence. Now this fourth record finds them better honing in all of those elements for maximum impact. Tracks like It Consumes Me in particular demonstrate what I consider to be the perfect execution of both headbanging aggression and deeply stirring clean choruses on par with my favorites from the 2000s. Highly recommended in particular to fans of things like Make Them Suffer. Then we have Slime Lord with Chytridia Mycosis Relinquished. If we're tracing back roots, there's definitely some incantation in the DNA of this UK death doom band, but more precisely I'd compare this to the likes of Abyssal, Malthusian, and Portal. It has the same malevolent tunnel through the depths and give yourself to the void kind of vibe, especially on tracks like Gut Brain Axis. Definitely for the more patient out there, as the emphasis is definitely on the doom. I'll say that I did find myself a little ready for it to be over a few songs early, but if even a hater like me can enjoy it, I'd consider that to be a serious point in its favor. Then we have Boundaries with Death Is Little More. I shall see you when I close my eyes. I can't even know, bitch, when you're not there. This Connecticut metalcore band have been somewhat teetering on the precipice of greatness for a few years now, and I think that this is the album where it may finally tip over. Such primal intensity on tracks like Turning Hate into Rage, but also some soaring melodic moments as well on the likes of Easily Erased make this another beautiful channeling of that classic 2000s era sound. This is another one that transports me back to high school days spent listening to As I Lay Dying, Poison the Well, and Under Oath, with tracks like Darkness Shared and Cursed to Remember. And also expect some guest spots from members of Alpha Wolf, Invent Animate, and Kubla Khan. Then we have Carry On Veil with Cannibals Anonymous. I caught wind of this Richmond melodic death metal band back in 2020 with their second album, God Killer, quickly adding them to my list of bands to watch for fans of the Black Dahlia murder. Now on album 4, they are continuing to offer up a very similar take on the genre with lightning fast yet frequently catchy melodic riffing and also some clean choruses. Unfortunately, I can't give you a full rundown as I have not been given the opportunity to listen to this one by the time this video needed to be put together, so this recommendation is based more on the singles and past material. I will say that I'm not quite sold on those clean vocals, but I think that with a little bit more polish they do add some additional dynamics to help them stand out, and hopefully the rest of the record pans out. And then my favorite metal album of March goes to Aborted with Vault of Horrors. The Belgian kings of modern death metal return for their 12th album since their debut all the way back in 1999. And with their biggest list of guest spots yet, with someone on every single track from Shadow of Intent, Flesh God Apocalypse, Angelmaker, Cryptopsy, Ingested, Engulf, Archspire, Signs of the Swarm, Of Sulfur, and Despised Icon. My personal favorite here is probably Ollie from Archspire on The Shape of Hate, since his machine gun vocals meld perfectly with the lightning fast music, but there are plenty of other tracks that instantly got their hooks into me, like Death Cult, Insect Politics, and The Golgothan. Frankly, every song here is fantastic, with a great start to finish flow that has an emphasis on speed and heaviness, but masterfully broken up by the melodic and atmospheric elements. Y'all check out this playlist for more of my favorite metal albums of 2024 so far, or this video for something different. But that'll do it for now. Flight of Icarus signing off. I will see you in the trenches.